Thank you. Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, esteemed colleagues and guests, it's a great honor to welcome you all to the Arctic Day here at the Osaka World Expo 2025. I present these opening remarks as Minister for Nordic Cooperation of Finland and as this year's Chair of the Nordic Council of Ministers. The Nordic countries and Japan have cooperated for decades, and I look forward to enhancing our friendship. And what better way to do it than to take part in this exquisite expo? The Nordic Circle, our joint pavilion, offers the perfect setting to further enhance our collaboration. In recent years, the Arctic has been the focus of global security discussions, especially its strategic significance. However, from a holistic security point of view, climate change and its implications for Arctic communities cannot be overlooked. As the climate warms and creates more extreme weather conditions, the ecosystems that we depend on, our societies, and our critical infrastructure become more vulnerable. The Arctic region is our home. The Arctic is vital for our nations, not least to the indigenous people who are connected with each other through innumerable cultural and linguistic ties. Distinct ways of living and whole livelihoods are pursued across the region. All Nordic societies have adapted to the Arctic's harsh and changing conditions. For example, while many of our harbors freeze in the wintertime and we see snow every year, our shipping and airports continue to function regardless of weather and for the most part even without any delays. To maintain our resilient societies, we need a high level of preparedness which can only be built by working together. Dear guests, as you may know, the Nordic Council of Ministers is a forum for the official cooperation between the Nordic governments. Its premise is to find common Nordic solutions in areas where we can gain better results by cooperating than by acting alone. It's guided by the vision of the Nordic Prime Minister, which is to make the Nordic region the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. Societal security, preparedness, and resilience are the key themes in the Finnish and Ålandic presidency of the Nordic Council of Ministers this year. Another cross-government priority theme of our presidency is children and young people. The priority theme, preparedness, is based on the concept of comprehensive security, meaning authorities, the business community, organizations, and citizens work together to build resilience. We are very proud of our business community's commitment to our society's economic security and security of supply. And I am indeed very happy to see representatives from so many different sectors here today. We all have a role in safeguarding the vital functions of our societies, as well as our democratic political systems on the foundation of the rule of law. Within the Nordic Council of Ministers, the Arctic has been a priority for the past 30 years. In the 10th Nordic Arctic Programme, the focus is on contributing to attractive and socially whole multi-generational local Arctic communities, developing local Arctic business opportunities and sustainable economic growth, and advancing the green transition towards a sustainable, circular, and bio-based economy. The Nordic countries are committed to working together to achieve these goals. Through Nordforsk, the Nordic Council of Ministers Institution for Research Cooperation, together with national agencies funding scientific research in the Nordic countries and Canada, 9 major research projects have recently been launched. In 2 weeks, Finland will be hosting a first-ever workshop on resilience in the face of climate tipping points, which will assess the direct and indirect impacts that climate tipping points are likely to have in the Nordic region, as well as strategies for adaptation to this very problem. Esteemed colleagues, Russia's full-scale war on Ukraine has changed the international security environment, and it also affects Nordic cooperation. The Nordic countries are committed to supporting Ukraine as long as it takes. The current global situation calls for unity. The cooperation in the Nordic Council of Ministers and in the European Union, including when it comes to working towards a stable and sustainable Arctic, are examples of this. We should remember that while the Arctic, from a geographical point of view, might seem remote, the world is interconnected. Preparedness and sustainable solutions for the Arctic require cooperation locally, regionally, nationally, and with international partners. This event offers us all a great opportunity to share ideas, innovate, and form connections, and to achieve better results together. Dear colleagues, the Nordic countries need international cooperation and global partnerships for new innovations and business opportunities, higher education and research, and we need new skills to make use of emerging opportunities. Here today, we'll discuss digitalization, innovation, knowledge-based decision-making, and the geopolitical changes affecting the Arctic. Japan is an important actor also when it comes to the Arctic. I'm curious to explore sustainable solutions that we can find for the Arctic together. We face common challenges with respect to our aging populations, maintaining our social models aiming at ensuring equal opportunities and safety and prosperity for all of our people, and meeting security challenges that are rapidly evolving. I invite all participants in this Arctic Day event to take part in shaping a sustainable future for the Arctic. Thank you.
Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is indeed also my great pleasure to be able to welcome you all to the Arctic Day, which is, as you've already heard, a joint project of the Nordic countries and the Nordic Council of Ministers. And we are very proud to co-host and warmly welcome you all here. As just stated by Minister Adlercreutz, the Nordic Council of Ministers is the official governmental body between the Nordic countries. And we work tirelessly towards the vision of the Nordic Prime Ministers, which is actually making sure that our Nordic region is the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. And this Vision 2030, it is bold and it is ambitious, and it really requires us to work evidence-based and interdisciplinary. So everything we do at the Nordic Council of Ministers is actually designed to make our region become both green, competitive, and socially sustainable. And over the past months, the Nordic Circle here at Expo 25 in Osaka has really been a very living example of Nordic collaboration in action. So I would also like to, at this final event, also thanking everyone involved. It is true Nordic cooperation. It's difficult, it's demanding, but you are succeeding here. So really congratulating that. And since the opening in April, that's ages ago, our Nordic Pavilion has actually hosted events almost every single day, serving as a true forum for dialogue between Nordic, Japanese, and international counterparts. We at the Nordic Council of Ministers have co-organized 11 joint Nordic days on themes that are central to our cooperation and our Vision 2030. And the Arctic Day, which concludes this whole series, it really highlights a region that is politically and culturally very central for the Nordic cooperation, as stated both by Her Royal Highness and the Minister, because the Arctic plays a vital role in the geography and the identity of the Nordic region. And this positions the Nordic countries as key partners in international Arctic policy and cooperation. And for over 30 years, the Arctic has been a strategic priority for the Nordic Council of Ministers. And a central aspect of this work is also promoting people-to-people collaboration across borders with a strong emphasis on fostering north-to-north mutual understanding and knowledge exchange across the Arctic. Our newly launched Nordic Arctic program will strengthen robust civil societies, support sustainable economic growth, and advance the green transition in the Arctic. And a key priority is to foster local Arctic partnerships that build resilience across the Nordic Arctic region. 4 million people live in the Arctic. Ensuring environmental, economic, and socially sustainable societies and well-being for the people living in the Arctic is essential, not only for the resilience of local communities and indigenous peoples, but because their knowledge and leadership are vital to the future of the region. The Arctic region is facing immense challenges, effects of climate change, and geopolitical tensions with regional consequences. And considering the urgency of these convening threats, the time for renewed international cooperation, informed by science and guided by a shared responsibility, is now. Nordic cooperation in the Arctic is broad and embraces areas such as environment, health, energy supply, research, culture, education, IT research, and business promotion. And with today's geopolitical changes, war in Europe, the lessons learned from the pandemic, and the growing impact of climate change, the Nordic countries are placing greater emphasis on resilience and preparedness. So together we must ensure that our societies are ready to manage complex threats, from natural disasters and future pandemics to challenges in global trade and investment. And this work happens through strong partnerships, like the one that we share here with Japan. So together, through cooperation, through innovation, and shared purpose, we can turn challenges to opportunities. And in the Nordic region, we work to preserve the sensitive and distinctive Arctic nature. We want to ensure that the region's resources are used in a sustainable way and that biological diversity is preserved. So by working together, we can build a better, more resilient, and more sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Now we have the last 5 minutes. We have this impossible task of summarizing it. Yeah. And for those of you that don't know it, but Karen Ellemann was in politics for many years. And we heard that there's plenty of money somewhere. And money normally flows where there's the least resistance. So I think the conversation I would like to have now is two things from you. One is, what are your takeaways? This is a new field for you. What is your takeaways as, someone who knows the political sector?
It's not a new field for me. And being Secretary General of the Nordic Council of Ministers, I said earlier that our Arctic engagement has been going on for 30 years. What's new for me is being given a microphone and doing it very shortly. That's the new part. No, seriously, thank you so much for this very, very interesting day. So generous participants, really, really delivering your top ambitions, top thoughts, top expectations of Nordic-Japanese cooperation, Nordic EU, of course. And I think the main takeaways from today is something said from, several of you, is that size matters. I mean, no one can deliver this alone. And coming together in this delivery, which is much needed, no doubt about that, for several reasons. Many has said it and stated it very clear. So this need and this demand, actually, for more data and more connectivity, it's beyond discussion. It's a fact. And I think what is also put very clear by scientists today is that science knows no borders, and data has no borders, and one of you said that data is the new gold, and I still just want to emphasize that our Nordic gold is our trust, and we talked a lot about trust, and this is really the most important ingredient needed in the work forward. And then we talked a lot about Pac-Man. And I really enjoyed getting back to Pac-Man. My last question would then be, who is Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde? Do you remember Pac-Man? Well, I played it. It says something about my age. But anyway, those are the ghosts in Pac-Man. Those are the enemies. So who are they? Not to answer right now. Maybe we can discuss it over the cold beer on the terrace. But I think this is important in this whole picture, because this is needed, and we are talking about taking it. Of course, I get the Pac-Man bit by bit, and eating the cheese. But somewhere along comes the ghosts, right? The enemies.
And what I've I don't know if it's on. Yeah. What I've heard is yes, we have the scale in the Nordic region. We have clearly the trust between Japan and the Nordic region. So I don't see any of the ghosts being there, which is, I think, is a very positive takeaway. That clearly, from the Nordic and Japan, there's no ghost. There's clearly a ghost, and that will be for the conversation from outside. But now the question is, what do we do next? There's plenty of conferences and reports and so on, and we do all of this. How do we move forward from this? I think the previous panel already had some of the suggestions, but from your chair, how do we move forward from this?
I think it was stated very clearly that this need is urgent, and I think all the activities going on is actually the path forward. And we have different lineups and different explanations of in what order, in what line does this happen. And this is not a one-man show. Of course it isn't. Nobody says it's a one-man show. But I honestly, not going back to the ghosts, but still some mentioned who produces the cables. How do we take the whole picture of the production of what is actually needed here? And I think the ongoing work definitely needs this type of cooperation that we are very good at in a Nordic Japanese way, EU way, and the whole public-private partnership model. That's our force. I mean, how we do this kind of international cooperation that is needed here, and as I also said earlier, informed by science and guided by shared responsibility. That is the way forward. That is definitely the next steps, and the steps are already being taken.
And a final leading question here, but the Nordic Council of Ministers and the Nordic cooperation overall, what is the role for them to play? We heard a lot of projects saying we got funding from the Nordic Council, we got funding, we got support, whether it's think tanks or the digital twin and so on. What's the role of the Nordic Council of Ministers to continue this conversation?
Well, my aim is that we definitely keep on, lifting the eye and facing the future, looking a bit further. We are not, I have, of course, a short term, and then there will be a new Secretary General, but anyway, our projects are long-lasting. Our projects aim at creating this Nordic added value. This is a very clear vision from our prime ministers. It was adopted in 2019, saying we want the Nordic region to become the most integrated and sustainable region in the world. And even though we shift prime ministers in one of the countries, we do that from time and another, they still reconfirm this shared Nordic vision. So the role for us as the intergovernmental cooperation system, we are a tiny player in the big picture. I mean, luckily now we have all members of the Nordic Council of Ministers also being members of NATO, so other players are at place here. But our role in the Nordic Council of Ministers is keeping on bringing people together, making sure we have these arenas where we discuss openly and frankly, where we keep on providing, you know, maybe it's not all funding, but it's the seed money that really creates this amplifier in many different projects. These ones mentioned today as some of them.
No, thank you very much. We have reached the end of the Nordic Arctic Day here at the pavilion at the Expo. We will now have time to network even more. We have time to have a little drink. We have a speech by the Swedish minister, Erik Slottner, outside. But let's give all the panelists a round of an applause. Thank you.
And please join me in a special applause for Mads. You've done a tremendous job as moderator. Thank you.